The massive space station hung in the darkness like a jewel made of metal and light. Ships from 100 different worlds docked at its arms, each one carrying representatives from species that had traveled across the galaxy. Inside the main chamber, thousands of beings waited. Some breathed oxygen, others methane. Some had scales, others had fur. And some looked like walking crystals that sang when they moved. Ambassador Tae-sung walked through the long corridor toward the chamber. His black suit was simple compared to the colorful robes and armor of the other ambassadors. Behind him, Hae-jin kept pace. She wore the uniform of Earth's military, though she carried no weapon. The guards at the door would not have allowed it anyway. "They think we are here to sign," Hae-jin said quietly in Korean. "The whole council believes we will accept their treaty." Tae-sung nodded but said nothing. His face showed no emotion. He had practiced this moment in his mind 1,000 times during the long journey from Earth. Today would change everything. The doors opened. The chamber was enormous, built to hold representatives from species both tiny and massive. The Velthani ambassador looked like a walking diamond, her crystalline body reflecting light in rainbow colors. The Morian delegate floated in a tank of water, his tentacles moving slowly as he watched the entrance. And there, in the section reserved for the most powerful species, sat Vren of the Kresh Dominion. The Kresh looked like insects, but they stood as tall as humans. Their shells were dark green and black, their multiple eyes gleaming with intelligence and cruelty. Vren's mandibles clicked together in what might have been laughter as Tae-sung entered. The council speaker, a being of pure energy contained in a suit of golden metal, raised one hand. Silence fell across the chamber. "Ambassador Tae-sung, of the human species, you have been called to address this council regarding the Resource Allocation Treaty. Your species has reviewed the terms for 3 months. What is Earth's answer? 1%. You have been called to address this council. Reviewed the terms." Tae-sung walked to the center platform. The eyes of 100 species watched him. Some looked curious. Most looked bored. They had all decided what humanity would do. Young species always bent to the will of the older ones. That was how the galaxy worked. "Honored Council," Tae-sung began, his voice clear and strong. "I stand before you today not to discuss treaties. I stand here to speak of justice." Murmurs rippled through the chamber. Vren's mandibles clicked faster. 3 months ago, human colony ships traveling to the Outer Rim were attacked. 17 ships, 4,000 men, women, and children. The Kresh Dominion claimed these were accidents, navigation errors, unfortunate encounters in disputed space. Tae-sung paused, his eyes moving to Vren. "We have evidence that proves otherwise." The chamber erupted. Dozens of species began speaking at once in their various languages. The translation systems struggled to keep up. The council speaker raised both hands, calling for order. "Ambassador Tae-sung," the speaker said, its voice carrying a warning tone. "These accusations have been investigated. The matter was settled. The Kresh paid compensation." "The Kresh paid money," Tae-sung replied. "Money does not bring back the dead. Money does not answer why Kresh warships were waiting in ambush. Money does not explain why our rescue teams found Kresh weapons testing equipment in the debris." Vren stood up, his massive form towering over the other delegates in his section. "The human lies. His species seeks to avoid signing the treaty by making false claims. They want war because they refuse to accept their place in the galactic order." Tae-sung reached into his jacket and pulled out a small device. He held it up. "This data core contains communications intercepted from Kresh military channels. It contains tactical reports. It contains orders." He looked directly at Vren. "It contains the truth." Hae-jin stepped forward and took the device. She walked to the council's central computer and inserted it. Holographic displays appeared throughout the chamber. Every delegate could see the translated Kresh military communications. Orders to test human defensive capabilities. Plans to gauge human response times. Discussions about whether humanity would fight or submit. The chamber fell silent. Even Vren said nothing. The council speaker studied the displays. Its voice was quieter now. If this evidence is genuine, then the matter must be investigated fully. Both species will submit to council arbitration. A panel of judges will review. A panel of judges will review. No, Taesung said. The single word hung in the air like a blade. No, the speaker repeated. Humanity has watched the council for 2 centuries. We have seen how disputes are resolved. We have seen how justice works here. Taesung's voice grew harder. The strong do what they wish. The weak suffer what they must. The council speaks of law, but the law protects those with the largest fleets. Choose your next words carefully, Ambassador, the speaker warned. Taesung took a breath. This was the moment. There was no going back from this. In accordance with Article 73 of the Council Charter, which permits member species to pursue justice through military action, when Council mediation has failed, I hereby declare that the human species is now in a state of war with the Kresh Dominion. For 3 full seconds, nobody moved. Nobody spoke. The chamber seemed frozen in time. Then, chaos erupted. Delegates screamed in 100 languages. Some rushed for the exits. Others demanded explanations. The Velthani ambassador's crystalline body flashed with colors that indicated extreme distress, and Vren laughed. His laughter echoed through the chamber, a harsh, chittering sound that cut through the noise. War? You declare war? Foolish human. We have crushed species far stronger than you. We have fleets that number in the thousands. What do you have? 12 battleships? 20? Your species has been in space for barely 200 years. Taesung met Vren's multiple eyes without fear. Then, you have nothing to worry about. He turned and walked toward the exit. Heejin followed. Behind them, the Galaxy Council dissolved into disorder, delegates arguing and shouting as the 2 humans left the chamber. In the corridor outside, Heejin finally spoke. It is done. Yes, Taesung replied. Now the real work begins. They walked toward their ship, leaving behind a galaxy that had no idea what was coming. The news spread across the galaxy faster than light. On 1,000 worlds, beings gathered to watch the broadcasts. A human ambassador had declared war on the Kresh Dominion. Most reactions were the same: shock, followed by pity, followed by dismissive laughter. On the Velthani homeworld, where everything was made of crystal and light, Ambassador Dalm watched the recordings of the council session for the 15th time. Her body shifted through colors that showed deep concern. She had liked the human ambassador. Taesung had always been respectful, thoughtful, careful with his words. Now he had signed his species' death warrant. She activated her communication device and sent a message to Earth. Please reconsider. The Kresh will not show mercy. There is still time to negotiate. The response came 12 hours later. It was short. Thank you for your concern. Humanity has made its choice. Dalm's body flashed red with frustration. Foolish, stubborn humans. Above Earth's moon, Commander Ji-woo stood on the bridge of the warship Thunder. Through the windows, she could see dozens of other human ships gathering. Cruisers, destroyers, carriers. They looked impressive to human eyes, but Ji-woo had seen the Kresh fleet numbers. This would not be a fair fight. Commander, her second officer said, we are receiving reports from our intelligence network. The Kresh are mobilizing their 7th fleet, approximately 2,000 ships. And we have? Ji-woo asked, though she knew the answer. 43 combat-ready vessels in this sector, Commander. Someone on the bridge laughed nervously. Someone else swore. Ji-woo remained calm. Then, we use what we have. Send the signal. Begin Operation Hornet's Nest. On Earth, in a facility buried deep beneath the mountains of what used to be Korea, Dr. Yuna worked without sleep. Her team of scientists and engineers moved through the underground complex like busy insects, each focused on their tasks. Holographic displays showed weapons designs, ship schematics, and tactical simulations. "The kinetic rounds are ready," one of her assistants reported. "The fabrication plants can produce 5,000 per day." "Not enough," Yuna said, her eyes scanning the numbers. "We need 10,000. Increase the automation." "Doctor, the crews are already working 20-hour shifts. Then replace them with AI systems. This is war. Sleep can wait." She moved to another display, this one showing a map of the solar system. Red dots marked human positions. Blue dots marked predicted crash attack routes. There were so many blue dots. "They think we are weak," Yuna muttered to herself. "They think we are children playing with toys. Let them think that. Let them come." The Kresh 7th Fleet arrived at the edge of human space like a swarm of locusts. 2,000 ships, each one bristling with weapons that had destroyed countless enemies. Admiral Kreshtok commanded from his flagship, a massive battle station that could crack a planet's crust with its main cannon. "Pathetic?" Kreshtok clicked to his officers as they observed the human colony of New Busan on their screens. One small mining station, a few thousand humans. "We will make an example of them." The fleet moved forward. Kresh weapons charged. Targeting systems locked onto the station and the small orbital platforms around it. Then the station exploded. Not from Kresh weapons, it exploded on its own. Massive charges detonated across its structure, sending debris in every direction. The Kresh ships tried to adjust course, but the debris field was spreading too fast. Hundreds of pieces of metal, some as large as shuttles, slammed into the leading ships. "Evasive maneuvers," Kreshtok shouted, his fleet scattered, trying to avoid the expanding cloud of wreckage. That was when the asteroids began to fire. What the Kresh had thought were natural space rocks suddenly activated. Laser cannons emerged from hidden ports. Nuclear missiles launched from concealed silos. Human mining drones, retrofitted with explosives and crude AI, accelerated toward the Kresh ships like bullets. The lead ships died first. Lasers cut through their hulls. Missiles found their reactors. The mining drones, too small and numerous to target effectively, crashed into Kresh vessels and detonated. The neat formation of the 7th Fleet collapsed into chaos. "Return fire. Destroy those asteroids," Kreshtok commanded. The Kresh fleet obeyed, their massive guns turning toward the hidden platforms. But the asteroids were already moving, using thrusters to dodge and reposition. More drones emerged from hiding spots throughout the belt. More missiles launched. By the time the Kresh managed to destroy the last automated defense platform, they had lost 300 ships. Kreshtok stared at his tactical display in disbelief. 300 ships, destroyed by automated defenses and booby traps. Not a single human warship had even appeared. "Admiral," his communications officer said, its voice shaking. The main screen changed. Ambassador Tae-sung appeared, standing in what looked like a military command center. Behind him, human officers worked at their stations. "Admiral Kreshtok," Tae-sung said calmly. "Welcome to human space. I hope you enjoyed our welcoming party. This message is being broadcast to the entire galaxy, so everyone can see what happens when you attack humanity. New Busan was evacuated 3 days ago. Every civilian is safe. But your fleet is bleeding." Kreshtok's mandibles ground together in rage. "I will exterminate your entire species for this." "You can try," Tae-sung replied. "But you should know something about humans, Admiral. We have been fighting wars since we lived in caves. We have spent 10,000 years learning how to kill each other. We are very, very good at it." He paused. "You wanted to test us, to see if we would fight. Now you know. And now the whole galaxy knows." The transmission ended. Across the galaxy, beings watched the footage. They saw the Kresh fleet, damaged and disorganized. They saw human tactics that no one had anticipated. They saw a young species that fought like cornered predators. On the Velthani homeworld, Dalm's body cycled through colors rapidly: surprise, concern, and something else: respect. In the council chambers, emergency sessions were called. Delegates who had laughed at humanity's declaration now spoke in worried tones. The Morian ambassador, whose species had suffered from Kresh aggression in the past, watched the recordings with all of his eyes. His tentacles moved in patterns that indicated approval. And in the Kresh Dominion, the High Command gathered to review the battle reports. They had expected an easy victory. They had expected humanity to crumble. Instead, they had lost 300 ships to an empty mining colony. Send the 2nd, 4th, and 9th fleets. The Kresh Emperor commanded. I want Earth turned to ash. Above the moon, Commander Ji Woo received the intelligence report. 3 Kresh fleets, totaling over 5,000 ships, were heading toward Earth. She smiled. It was not a kind smile. Good, she said. Let them come to us. We will be ready. The 3 Kresh fleets gathered at the edge of the solar system like a dark cloud. Over 5,000 warships, their weapons ready, their crews eager for revenge. They had orders to destroy Earth and every human settlement in the system. No mercy. No prisoners. Admiral Sang-hoon watched them come. His fleet, positioned near Jupiter, numbered only 65 ships. The odds were impossible, but Sang-hoon had not survived 40 years in the military by playing fair. Captain Minseo, he said to the officer standing beside him. Status on the drone swarms? Status on the drone swarms. Minseo, a young woman with sharp eyes and a tactical mind that impressed even veterans, checked her display. 12,000 drones deployed and hidden throughout Jupiter's orbit. Another 8,000 stationed near the moons. All armed and awaiting your command, Admiral. Good. And the cyber warfare team? Ready. They have been probing Kresh communication networks for weeks. We have their encryption codes. Sang-hoon allowed himself a small smile. The galaxy thought of war as fleets meeting in open space, trading fire until one side broke. Humans had learned war differently. Humans had learned to be creative. The Kresh fleets advanced, their formation perfect and disciplined. They had fought 100 wars and won them all. They knew how battles worked. 2 fleets meet, exchange fire. The stronger side wins. Simple, clean, honorable. They did not understand humans. When the Kresh reached Jupiter's orbit, Sang-hoon gave the order. Release the drones. Begin electronic warfare. All ships. Execute pattern chaos. The human fleet scattered. Ships broke formation and accelerated in different directions, using Jupiter's massive gravity to slingshot around the planet at incredible speeds. The Kresh tried to target them, but human ships were moving too fast, too unpredictably. Then the drones attacked. Thousands of small, cheap machines emerged from hiding spots in Jupiter's radiation belts. Each one was no bigger than a car, but each one carried enough explosives to cripple a Kresh destroyer. They moved in swarms, coordinating with simple AI that made them nearly impossible to predict. The Kresh fleet fired their point defense weapons, destroying hundreds of drones. But there were thousands more. They slammed into Kresh shields, overwhelming them with sheer numbers. When shields failed, the drones hit hulls. Explosions rippled through the Kresh formation. At the same time, the human cyber warfare team struck. Viruses and malware flooded through Kresh communication networks. Command ships suddenly lost contact with their fleets. Navigation systems displayed false information. Weapons targeting computers locked onto friendly vessels instead of enemies. Confusion spread through the Kresh ranks. Ships fired on each other by mistake. Others drifted out of formation, their engines offline. The perfect military machine began to fall apart. Captain Minseo led her squadron of destroyers in a hit-and-run attack. They emerged from behind one of Jupiter's moons, fired a full spread of missiles at the nearest Kresh battleship, then disappeared back into the moon's shadow before the enemy could respond. The missiles were not normal explosives. They were kinetic weapons, metal rods accelerated to a fraction of light speed. When they hit, they punched through Kresh armor like paper. "Target destroyed," Minseo reported. Admiral Sang-hoon watched the battle unfold on his tactical display. The Kresh had superior numbers and firepower, but they were fighting blind, confused, scattered. Human tactics were working, but it was not enough. "They are adapting," his tactical officer warned. "The Kresh are regrouping. They have isolated and destroyed our malware in their core systems." Sang-hoon nodded. He had expected this. The Kresh were not fools. Phase 2. Activate the hidden platforms. Phased. Throughout Jupiter's orbit, what appeared to be small asteroids and ice chunks suddenly came to life. They were not rocks. They were weapons platforms. Hidden months ago, in preparation for this exact moment, railguns emerged and began firing, each shot propelling metal slugs at devastating speeds. More missile pods activated, launching warheads that split into dozens of smaller munitions. The Kresh fleet reeled under the assault. They had entered what they thought was empty space. Instead, they had walked into a trap that humanity had spent months preparing. But the Kresh were powerful. Their ships were strong. Slowly, despite heavy losses, they began to fight back effectively. Kresh heavy cruisers formed defensive formations. Their plasma cannons, each one powerful enough to melt a small moon, fired in coordinated volleys. Human drones died by the hundreds. The hidden platforms began to fall silent as Kresh weapons found them. "We are losing momentum," Minseo reported from her ship. Her destroyer had taken damage, one engine failing. But she kept fighting. "Admiral, they are pushing through." Sang-hoon had known this moment would come. "All human ships, retreat to Earth orbit. Execute defensive plan." Fortress. The human fleet disengaged, using Jupiter's gravity one last time to accelerate toward home. The Kresh, bloodied but unbowed, followed. They had lost over 1,000 ships in the battle, but 3,000 remained, more than enough to finish this. The pursuit led the Kresh deeper into the solar system, past Mars, where automated satellites tracked their every move, past the asteroid belt, where human mining colonies had been evacuated but left more surprises. By the time the Kresh fleet reached Earth's orbit, they had lost another 500 ships to ambushes and traps, but they were here. Earth lay before them, blue and green and beautiful. The Kresh Emperor had ordered its destruction, and they would obey. Then they saw the human defensive fleet waiting for them. It was not 65 ships anymore. It was over 300. Reinforcements had arrived from every human colony, every outpost, every hidden shipyard. And these ships looked different. Their hulls gleamed with new armor. Energy shields flickered around them. Technology the galaxy had never seen humans possess before. Dr. Yuna's work had borne fruit. Admiral Sang-hoon stood on the bridge of his flagship, now repaired and reinforced. "All ships, this is Admiral Sang-hoon. The enemy is at our doorstep. Behind us is Earth, our home, our families, our future. We do not have the luxury of retreat. We do not have the option of surrender. We have only one choice: fight." Across the human fleet, crews cheered. They knew the odds. They knew many would die. But they also knew they were defending something worth dying for. The Kresh Admiral looked at the human fleet and felt something he had not felt in many years: doubt. These humans had already proven they were dangerous. Now they stood ready, their ships equipped with new weapons, their formations solid and determined. "Attack," he ordered, because there was nothing else to do. Retreat was not the Kresh way. The two fleets collided in Earth's orbit. Plasma cannons met laser batteries. Kinetic rounds punched through shields. Missiles filled the space between ships. Explosions lit up the darkness like new stars being born. Human ships fought with a ferocity that shocked the Kresh. When shields failed, they rammed enemy vessels. When weapons ran out, they used their ships as weapons. Captain Minseo, her destroyer crippled and burning. The impact destroyed both vessels, but it also created an opening for 3 human cruisers to pour fire into the Kresh formation. Dr. Yuna watched from Earth's surface, where her research facility coordinated the fleet's weapons systems. Every shot humans fired was calculated by AI to maximize damage. Every movement was coordinated to minimize losses. Humanity could not match Kresh numbers, but humans could be smarter, faster, more efficient. The battle raged for 12 hours. Ships died on both sides. The space around Earth became filled with debris and bodies. But slowly, impossibly, the tide turned. Human shields held when they should have failed. Human weapons hit harder than the Kresh expected. Human tactics continued to surprise and confuse. And human determination never wavered. When the Kresh finally retreated, they had lost half their fleet. Over 1,500 ships destroyed. The survivors limped back toward their own territory, pursued by human hunters who gave them no rest. Earth had survived. Across the galaxy, beings watched the battle footage in stunned silence. The humans had won. The young species, dismissed and mocked, had defeated the mighty Kresh. In the council chambers, emergency sessions were called. Delegates who had ignored humanity now demanded to speak with Ambassador Tae-sung. The political landscape was shifting, and in Kresh space, the Emperor looked at the reports and felt fear for the first time in his long reign. The Kresh Emperor sat on his throne, carved from the bones of his enemies, and listened to the reports. Over 2,000 ships lost, human forces pushing into Kresh territory, colonies requesting evacuation. The Dominion, undefeated for 3 centuries, was losing. Unacceptable, the Emperor hissed. His advisors remained silent. They knew better than to speak when he was angry. Activate protocol extinction. If we cannot defeat these humans with honor, we will erase them with terror. His military commander hesitated. Your Majesty, protocol extinction violates council law. The use of biological weapons against civilian populations is forbidden. If we grew now, grew now, grew now, grew now. If we, the Emperor's clawed hand shot out and gripped the commander's throat. Do I look like I care about council law? The humans humiliated us. They must suffer. Release the plague on their colonies. Kill them all. The order went out across Kresh space. Deep in military laboratories, scientists prepared weapons that had been banned for good reason. Viruses and bacteria, engineered to kill quickly and spread faster. Weapons that did not care if their victims were soldiers or children. The human colony world of New Jeju was home to 3 million people. Farmers, teachers, engineers, families who had traveled across space to build a new life. They had no military base, no warships, just farms and schools and homes. The Kresh strike team arrived without warning. They did not attack with weapons. They simply released canisters into the atmosphere and left. Within hours, people began to fall sick. Within days, hospitals overflowed. Within 2 weeks, 2 million people were dead. The news reached Earth like a dagger to the heart. Ambassador Tae-sung watched the footage from New Jeju. Bodies in the streets. Children dying in their parents' arms. Medical teams overwhelmed and helpless. His hands shook with rage. Get me Commander Jiwoo, he said quietly. And wake up Dr. Yuna. Tell her I need every weapon we have. Everything we have been holding back. The Kresh wanted war. Now they will see what humans do when you kill our children. Across human space, the response was immediate and unified. Every person, every ship, every resource was directed toward one goal: make the Kresh pay. Commander Jiwoo stood in the war room. surrounded by her best tactical minds. On the displays around them, maps showed Kresh territory, industrial centers, military bases, and most importantly, their 3 primary shipyards, where the Kresh built their massive fleets. These shipyards are the heart of their war machine, Jiwoo said, pointing to the map. Each one is defended by hundreds of warships, orbital fortresses, and shield generators strong enough to withstand nuclear strikes. The Kresh think they are untouchable. How do we hit them? One of her officers asked. Jiwoo smiled. It was a cold smile. We do not hit them. We erase them. The plan was called Operation Ghost Strike. Human stealth ships, using technology reverse-engineered from a dozen different species and improved with human ingenuity, would infiltrate Kresh space. They would avoid all patrols, hide from all sensors, and strike simultaneously at all 3 shipyards. It was impossible, which meant the Kresh would never expect it. Captain Jae-min commanded one of the stealth ships, Shadow Knife. His crew of 30 had trained for months for this mission. They knew the risks. They knew most of them would not come home. They went anyway. The journey through Kresh space took 2 weeks. Twice, they nearly ran into patrol fleets. Once, a Kresh sensor platform passed close enough that Jae-min could see it through the viewing port. But the stealth systems held. The human ships remained invisible. When all 3 teams were in position, Commander Ji-woo gave the order. All teams, you are authorized to engage. Show them what happens when they murder our families. Send them to hell. The 3 stealth ships dropped their cloaking and unleashed everything they had. Missiles that split into dozens of warheads, laser cannons that cut through Kresh shields like they were paper, and most devastating of all, antimatter bombs that Dr. Yuna's team had developed in secret. The first shipyard, located in orbit above the Kresh military world of Krathor, never knew what hit it. Explosions ripped through its structure. The antimatter bombs created miniature suns that consumed metal, rock, and flesh. Within minutes, the entire facility was gone, along with the 200 warships that had been under construction. The second shipyard managed to raise its shields. But it did not matter. Human weapons had been designed specifically to counter Kresh defenses. The shields held for 30 seconds. Then they fell, and the shipyard followed. The third shipyard fought back. Kresh defense platforms fired everything they had at Shadow Knife. Captain Jae-min's ship took hit after hit, armor melting, systems failing, but he kept his ship on course, flying directly toward the shipyard's reactor core. Crew, this is the captain, Jae-min said over the intercom. His voice was calm. Abandon ship. Get to the escape pods. I will finish this. Sir, we are staying, his first officer replied. The rest of the crew agreed. Jae-min felt pride surge through him. Shadow Knife, burning and broken, crashed into the shipyard's reactor. The antimatter bombs detonated. The explosion was visible from the planet below. A new sun that briefly turned night into day. When the light faded, the third shipyard was gone. Across the galaxy, the news spread rapidly. Humanity had struck deep into Kresh territory and destroyed their ability to build new ships. The balance of power had shifted completely. In the council chambers, Ambassador Dalam of the Velthani watched the battle reports. Her crystalline body glowed with many colors: admiration, fear, uncertainty. She had tried to stop this war. Now she realized the war had been inevitable. The Kresh had pushed, and humanity had pushed back harder than anyone thought possible. She activated her communication device and sent a message, but not to Earth. She sent it to the Morayan delegate, whose species had suffered under Kresh aggression for decades. The humans are proving what we always suspected. The Kresh are not invincible. Perhaps it is time we stop pretending they are. The response came quickly. I have already begun supplying intelligence to the human fleet. Kresh patrol routes, supply lines, defensive weaknesses. It is time the galaxy stood up to bullies. Other species began to take notice. The smaller civilizations, Those who had lived in fear of Kresh power started to ask questions. If humanity could resist, why could they not? Secret communications networks formed. Deals were made. Intelligence was shared. The Kresh found themselves increasingly isolated. Species that had traded with them suddenly found reasons to cancel contracts. Navigation data became mysteriously inaccurate, causing Kresh supply ships to get lost. Diplomatic channels went silent. Dr. Yuna worked without rest in her laboratory, pushing her team to develop new weapons, new defenses, new ways to hurt the enemy. The death of New Jeju haunted her. Every time she closed her eyes, she saw the footage of dying children. "Doctor," one of her assistants said carefully, "you need to sleep. You have been awake for 3 days." "I will sleep when this is over," Yuna replied, her eyes fixed on the holographic display showing her latest weapon design. "I will sleep when every Kresh who ordered that attack is dead. Until then, we work." The weapon she was developing was called Project Thunderbolt. Missiles that could move faster than light for short bursts, making them nearly impossible to intercept. If it worked, human ships would be able to strike from impossible distances with perfect accuracy. It had to work. Because Ambassador Taesung had just sent her a message. The Council was demanding negotiations. They wanted humanity to accept a ceasefire. But Taesung had other plans. The Kresh started this war by killing civilians. His message read, "They escalated by using biological weapons. They think they can murder our children and face no consequences. They are wrong. I what of you do?" Is read. And off, whence repentant. Often, finish Project Thunderbolt, Doctor. We are going to end this war. But we are going to end it our way. The Kresh will surrender unconditionally. Or they will face extinction. There is no middle ground anymore. Yuna looked at the message for a long time. Then she turned back to her work. The galaxy was about to learn that humanity, when pushed far enough, would push back with everything they had. The Kresh had wanted to test human resolve. They had gotten their answer. And now, they would pay the price. The human fleet gathered at the edge of Kresh space, over 400 ships strong. Every vessel bore the scars of battle. Every crew had lost friends. But they were here, at the doorstep of the enemy homeworld, ready to finish what the Kresh had started. Admiral Sang-hoon stood on the bridge of his flagship, watching the blue-green planet that was the Kresh capital world. 8 billion Kresh lived there. Civilians, mostly. Families. Children. Not so different from the people who had died on New Jeju. "Admiral," his communications officer said, "we are receiving a message from the Council. It is Ambassador Dalm. She says it is urgent. Put her through." The holographic display activated, showing the crystalline form of the Velthani ambassador. Her body flickered with colors that indicated extreme distress. "Admiral Sang-hoon, I beg you to stop. The Council is prepared to force a ceasefire. If you attack the Kresh homeworld, we will have no choice but to intervene. The destruction of a species' home planet violates every law we have. The Kresh violated those laws when they used biological weapons on New Jeju." Sang-hoon replied calmly. 2 million civilians dead. Ambassador, where was the Council then? Then, the Dunasum. The Dunasum. The Dunasum. The Dunasum. The Dunasum. We are attempting to hold the Kresh accountable. But this is genocide. Please. Humanity has proven its strength. You have won. Accept the peace terms we are offering. No. The voice came from behind Sang-hoon. Ambassador Taesung walked onto the bridge, Heejin beside him. "We did not come here for peace, Ambassador Dalman. We came here for justice." Dalman's form shifted through rapid color changes. "Ambassador Taesung, think about what you are doing. If you destroy their homeworld, you will be no better than them. We have no intention of destroying their homeworld, Taesung said. But we will break their ability to wage war. We will break their leadership. And we will make sure the entire galaxy understands that attacking humanity has consequences. He nodded to Sang-hoon. The admiral turned to his fleet. All ships, advance. Operation Final Justice is now active. The human fleet moved toward the Kresh homeworld. The remaining Kresh defense fleet, barely 300 ships, moved to intercept. But they were tired, damaged, and demoralized. Their shipyards were gone. Their emperor had led them into a disaster. The space battle was brief and brutal. Human weapons, refined and improved through months of war, tore through Kresh defenses. Dr. Yuna's Project Thunderbolt missiles struck with impossible speed and accuracy, destroying Kresh ships before they could even respond. Within 3 hours, the Kresh defense fleet was shattered. The human fleet took position in orbit above the Kresh homeworld. Their weapons were armed and aimed at the planet. One word from Sang-hoon, and the bombardment would begin. On the planet below, panic spread. The Kresh had never imagined this moment. Their homeworld, threatened by aliens. It was impossible. It was unthinkable. And yet, here it was. In the Imperial Palace, the Kresh Emperor watched the human fleet through his viewing screens. His advisors scrambled to offer solutions. But he knew the truth. They had lost. He had led his people to defeat. Your Majesty, his communications advisor said. The humans are broadcasting a message. It is the human ambassador. Taesung's image appeared on every screen across the Kresh homeworld. Every Kresh, from the highest noble to the lowest worker, saw his face. People of the Kresh Dominion. Taesung began. I am Ambassador Taesung of humanity. Your leadership started this war by attacking our civilian ships. They escalated it by using biological weapons against our colonies. They killed 2 million of our people, including children. And now, your military has been defeated. Your shipyards are destroyed. Your fleets are scattered. And our ships orbit your homeworld with enough firepower to sterilize your planet. Fear rippled across the Kresh world. In cities and towns, Kresh families huddled together, waiting for death. But, Taesung continued, humanity did not come here to commit genocide. We came here to end a war and to ensure it never happens again. We are offering your emperor one chance to surrender. Unconditional surrender. Your military will be disarmed. Your government will be held accountable for war crimes. Reparations will be paid. And the galaxy will see that aggression, no matter how powerful the aggressor, will face justice. He paused. You have 1 hour to decide. Choose wisely. In the council chambers, delegates watched in silence. The entire galaxy held its breath. The Kresh Emperor sat on his throne, contemplating his choices. He could refuse. Order his remaining forces to fight to the end. Die with honor. But he looked at the screens showing his capital city. The millions of Kresh living their lives below. Could he condemn them all? For his pride? Open a channel to the human fleet, he said quietly. Moments later, he faced Ambassador Taesung. I accept your terms. The Kresh Dominion surrenders. The words seemed to echo across the galaxy. Captain Minseo led the first landing force to the planet's surface. Her troops, battle-hardened and grim, secured the Kresh military command centers. There was no resistance. The Kresh military, defeated and exhausted, laid down their weapons. In the Imperial Palace, human soldiers arrested the Kresh Emperor and his war council. They would face trial for their crimes. The galaxy would see justice done. The war was over. In the months that followed, the galaxy transformed. The council, embarrassed by its failure to prevent or stop the war, restructured itself. Humanity was granted a permanent seat on the Security Directorate, the Council's most powerful body. Never again would human concerns be dismissed. The Resource Allocation Treaty was rewritten. Human interests were protected. Human space was recognized and respected. Ambassador He Jin, promoted to lead diplomatic coordinator, spearheaded the formation of the Mutual Defense Coalition. Dozens of smaller species, inspired by humanity's example, joined together. They would no longer live in fear of larger empires. They would stand together, as humanity had shown them. Dr. Yuna returned to Earth, where she was celebrated as a hero. But she took no joy in it. The weapons she had created had killed millions. The fact that they had saved billions did not erase that burden. She redirected her research toward peaceful applications, determined to build rather than destroy. Commander Ji Woo was promoted to Fleet Admiral, tasked with rebuilding and expanding humanity's military. The galaxy had seen what humans could do. Now she would ensure humanity could defend not just themselves, but their allies. Captain Minseo, one of the few survivors of the Battle of Earth, became an instructor at the new Human Military Academy. She taught the next generation of officers, ensuring they would be ready if war came again. And Ambassador Taesung, the man who had declared war in the council chambers, stood in the gardens of the council station with Ambassador Dalman. They walked in silence for a while, watching ships from 100 worlds come and go. "I opposed you," Dalman said finally. Her crystalline body glowed with soft colors. "You were not wrong to think that," Taesung replied. "It could have ended very differently, but it did not. You proved something the galaxy needed to see. That strength without accountability leads to tyranny. That even the powerful must face consequences." She paused. "The council is different now. Better, I think, because of what you did." Taesung nodded. "We did not want this war, Ambassador. We wanted peace. But we learned long ago that sometimes peace must be earned through strength. Sometimes you must be willing to fight for what is right. A hard lesson. All valuable lessons are hard." He looked up at the stars. "The galaxy sees humanity differently now. We are not the young species to be ignored or dismissed. We are equals. We earned that through sacrifice and determination." "What will humanity do now?" Dalman asked. "Build. Grow. Explore. Make friends. Defend those who cannot defend themselves." Taesung smiled. "We will do what we have always done. We will survive. We will adapt. And we will make sure that what happened to New Jeju never happens to anyone again." Across the galaxy, on a human outpost near the border of former Kresh space, young Lieutenant Jae-hyun looked out at the stars. He had been a cadet when the war started. Now he wore the uniform of a defender, responsible for protecting the peace his people had won. He thought about the stories he had heard. The Battle of Jupiter. The destruction of the shipyards. The final stand at Earth. Heroes. All of them. They had shown the galaxy that humanity would not be pushed around. That humans, when threatened, would fight with everything they had. But more than that, they had shown that humanity would fight smart, would adapt, would find ways to win even when the odds seemed impossible. Lieutenant Jae-hyun touched the memorial wall beside him, where names of the fallen were inscribed. Thousands of names. People who had given everything so that others might live in peace. "We will remember," he whispered. "We will honor your sacrifice. And we will make sure the galaxy never forgets what you taught them. That humanity, for all our flaws and youth, is a species to be respected. Not feared, but respected. Because when we are pushed, we push back. But when given the choice, we choose to build rather than destroy." The stars shone above him, and somewhere in that vast expanse, other species looked toward human space with new understanding. The young species had grown up. They had proven themselves, and the galaxy was better for it. The war was over, but humanity's story was just beginning.